If you have noted that I mentioned that we are bad as political beings. South Asians are not good homo politicus, but we are very good at homo culturicus, as cultural beings. Now Bangladesh is blessed, in fact, and this is where the tolerant culture comes. Bangladesh culturally is a hyper-cultural nation. Culturally, from December from December to May, every month there's a big celebration. Every month, December, it starts from December. Then you have Dol Purnima, then you have what you call Ekusha February, then you have the Pochishe March, the 25th March, 26th Genocide Day, the 26th March is the Independence Day, then you have Pahla Boishakh, which is the 14th April, this month, and it goes to 1st May, the Workers' Day. So from December to May, you have a 6 months anti-fundamentalist wave. And I remember when their regime had selected the date of December 28th, I told openly to the BNP people that look, and to the Jamaat, that you are finished. You can't win in December. Don't ever think. Because on the 1st December, this whole genocide theme starts coming up. There's stories, in fact. From December to May is a very serious anti-fundamentalism, and that's the reason why we have the strength and have not become like Pakistan. Let's put it more flatly. Because even if you go this 14th April, Pahla Boishakh, you'll be surprised and you'll see as many people as Hifaz al-Islam or Shahbaz joined together will be there on the streets, irrespective of whether they are BNP or Awami League, and this would be in lakhs of people coming on the streets to celebrate the happy Bengali New Year. Now, that has created a kind of a deterrent, so to say, to this Salafization or the Wahhabization. But the problem is, we don't have a counter discourse. You see, there are 4 ways you can actually counter terrorism. My argument would be that, and there are 4 I's. I put it in I's so that it becomes very easy for people to understand, to remember. 4 I's, if you remember, of counter terrorism. First I is incarceration. You need to put them in jail, which is there. You know, incarceration is a part of the state policy of the Big Brother, so incarceration. The second is intelligence. You need to reform intelligence in a big way, because you are now playing with the little people and not with the Big Brother of each other. You know, so the little people have got into. So you can't counter terrorism of today's terrorism with the 19th century and 20th century doctrine. So you need to change the entire intelligence framework in a make a big way. Even the United States, which had $1 trillion budget, could not stop 16 to 17 suicide bombers, and they came out with a new structure, the Homeland Security, plus the FBI, CIA, and others. They brought a new one. So you can see even hyper powers are trying to reinvent intelligence. The third one is the intellectual intervention. You need a serious intellectual intervention, because you are talking of the little people whose mind has gone different, in fact, who believe in what they're doing. And if they are ready to commit suicide, if you're familiar with Albert Camus' writings, Camus made an interesting, fascinating statement. He said, the only philosophical problem is suicide. The rest can be handled. And I think it makes sense today in 21st century. If a person wants to commit suicide, then you can't have any strategy or tactics to counter a suicide bomber. So here we are actually living in a kind of a Camus world where that has become a serious philosophical problem. And the last one is institutional investment. So you need incarceration, you need intelligence, you need intellectual intervention, and you need long-term institutional investment. 4 I's in order to counter this. Now that has not come up. So what has happened in Bangladesh, for example, yes, you have this cultural domain, you have an anti-fundamentalist wave, a 6-month but then you have these little people believing in what they're doing, because there is no counter discourse. Who are teaching the young people? Hifaz Islam. Look at the profile of the young people who merged into Dhaka and listen to this Imam and all. They're all young people, in fact. Now, why did they do it? Talk to them, in fact, and some of them are my students actually. I talk They have a totally, confused idea of what Islam is all about. No knowledge of Hanafi, believe it or not. No knowledge of anything, in fact, absolutely a knowledge that has come up, I would say, from the outside, trying to argue that this is what Islam is all about. Unless and until you have a counter discourse, you are not going to go very far in trying to contain that. The difference between Pakistan and Bangladesh is this, that in Pakistan, the state itself, the big brother itself, took the responsibility of Salafization, Ziaul Haq, more importantly, which up until now in Bangladesh has not happened. Up until now, whether it is a caretaker government or BNP even. Let me give you one example of BNP and I'll give you, just to give a sense. During the BNP's time, every Friday there were these anti-Ahmadiyya marches. Every Friday, okay? So the religious minister was directly asked by the journalists and by people that why don't you ban the Ahmadiyyas? And this is the BNP Minister of Religion. And what the minister said, this is interesting. The minister said, I cannot ban the Ahmadiyyas, only God can. He was actually giving the Hanafi response. Now why that is a Hanafi response? You see, in the Hanafi discourse, you do not have blasphemy law. You can never have blasphemy law in the Hanafi discourse. Abu Hanifa made it very clear. Why? What is blasphemy? It is when you have a conflict between divine and human. Who is going to judge? Human or the divine? Abu Hanifa made it very clear, any conflict between God and divine, the divine will judge. You have to wait till the day of judgment. No other, whether you are a Muslim or a less Muslim or not Muslim, that only God will know. Because even if you pray 5 times, will not really make you a Muslim. If you don't pray, you can become a Muslim. So you have to wait. In the Hanbali discourse, Ibn Hanbal is very clear. Finish it off, khalaq. So the Saudis culture, maybe, I think they are more familiar with the Hanbali discourse. So, so they are ready to say that they have this police, religious police who would say, go and pray. You can't have that in the Hanafi. And I'll give you my and this was a common knowledge. I remember, my father is no longer there, but I remember we were praying, somebody was saying that, oh, you have to pull your, trouser a little bit up, otherwise your prayer will not be, perfect or something. My father immediately corrected. He said, you can't say that the prayer will not be correct or not, because only the divine knows whether it will be correct. You can say, this is the way to do it, that's it. You can't go very far than that. So Hanafi, you cannot have a blasphemy law. And you will see, the moment you have a blasphemy law in any Islamic state, it is a Salafization case will be. And that, I think, is very, very important to understand. So, to go back to the question Shanti raises, yes, we have a cultural domain and that allows interesting things to happen. But not necessarily that you can continue forever if you don't have a counter discourse. On the second question, very quickly, I think Bangladesh, you must remember, we are blessed because of the NGOs movement. We have a serious NGO movement which no country has to the level that we have. And the reason is simple. Because the NGOs and the GO, they actually started their journey together. If you take BRAC, for example, it's a pre-GO actually. It had a 1970 outfit. So it was a pre-government outfit. So when the government came into being in 71, the NGO movement was there. So Abed and the government, they're together. And so they're all together, in fact. They can share. It's not a overdeveloped state trying to say, okay, now we need an NGO. They went hand in hand. And that's precisely the reason the NGO has done a kind of things that other countries could not do. And they have invested on women. Whatever women's empowerment that we refer to, it's not the two ladies as such actually. It's more the empowered women that you have in the villages and in the countryside and in the rural side. Very empowered women, in fact. If you look at the education figures, more girls are educated now in Bangladesh than men actually. This is interesting, in fact. This is interesting. 70% women voters we have. No country in South Asia has that many. And the NGOs are very critical in that. Because NGO in every election, they have this big kind of a poster where the child is telling the mother that don't forget the election day, go and give a vote. I remember back in '96 when I was a member of the election monitoring team, myself and Justice Shuja from Sri Lanka to Kumilla, there was big fight and all. All the men flew, they left, but all the women were standing in line. And so we went there, so there's so, tear gas and everything. No. If we go, then some other people will give the vote. We are not going to vote. All women stayed there. That's the hope. So the hope, yes, the cultural domain is the hope, but is a kind of a vanishing a little bit. But the women's empowerment, I think, has made a difference to Bangladesh from other countries. And that's precisely the reason why we have a Human Development Index in a better place than in other countries.
If the state has intervened on the Salafist side in Pakistan,